All right. Welcome back to this visual programming class. I think we'll pick up from where we left off last week. We decided that we are going to do telephone directory for uh, um, Technical University of Kenya. Valerie is also part of this class. Valerie Diambo.
Yeah, yes, she is.
I think just ask them to fill in the form and accept the invitation that I'd shared so that they can come in silently. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, now, as I was mentioning, we had decided that we're going to look at visual programming and the tools that we're going to use, we're going to develop what we call progressive web application. This is an application that runs on the web, but it's also responsive enough to be able to fit on a mobile device. And as we had looked at this last time, we decided to use Font Awesome for iconography, Bootstrap for styling, and of course, I think we also decided to use. No, we didn't decide to use jQuery, but basically those are the two tools we decided to use. Bootstrap for its CSS or for styling, and for Awesome for iconography. And I think we also just looked at how we can be able to create an index page, which was basically a login form. So I was just trying to show us how to create really how you would create a user interface. So this is important because at the end of the day, these are the things that we're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. Now, I had shared with you some three videos, some primer on HTML. I don't know if you looked at them. Did you?
Yes, we did.
Well, so if you did, I'm just going to brush through it very, very fast in one single class just to show us the different parts of HTML and how it works together. Then maybe we look at CSS selectors because we're going to use the same selectors for CSS for JavaScript because JavaScript will use the same selectors that we're using for CSS, especially when we use the query selector. So that's what we intend to achieve. So I'll leave this UI as is. Then I'll just go straight into how we can create our HTML. So I'll create a new file here and I'll call it HTML primer, HTML primer.html. So the extension can be HTML or HTML. I like using HTML for full one. Now, I'd mentioned that we can also use emmet. So for emmet, I simply put exclamation mark, then I press enter. It will fill in for me how the HTML document should look like. So I have the document type, I have the language, I have the head. Inside the head, I have the meta for the character set, the viewport, and of course, how the initial scale of the device is going to be. This is important because if depending on the device you're accessing the website from, it will be able to detect the device, and from here you can be able to control how you want the page to look like. Then of course you have the title here. So I'll say here this is HTML primer. Okay. So then of course we have the body. This is where the content of the page would go. So I just want to discuss very, very fast what makes up HTML, and specifically I'll be discussing images, links, lists, headings, paragraphs, and of course HTML forms. And I think I'll forget it at that. So as I had mentioned before, HTML is made up of what is called tags. So you can see we have the HTML tag, close HTML tag. So it will depend usually on what you're dealing with. And in HTML we have both open tag and not we have yes both open tags and opening closing pair tags. So sometimes you have opening closing pair tags. Sometimes you just have open tags. So we will see what they are. So of course, for closing open and closing pair tags, these are block level tags, which means they have their own separate line when you are dealing with the data. So let's go straight into first of all headings. So for you to put comments in HTML, you simply start with that, then you put that. So if you put,
Excuse me.
go ahead.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, you can't see my screen. I didn't share it. Okay, sorry. I think I shared it on the recording and I forgot to share it on the. These people, Gift and Alfred. Next time, make sure they just accept the link so that they don't disturb others. Eh? I hope now you can be able to see my screen.
Yes.
As I was saying, whenever you are starting HTML, I'm going to use Emmet to fill in for me the document. So Emmet, you simply put exclamation mark, then you press enter. It will populate how the HTML document will be structured for you. So first of all, it begins with the doc type, which is HTML, the language, we are talking about English. Then you have the head. So we said the head is where you put things that you're linking to your page. Meta is information about your page, like the content of the page, the character set that you're using, the initial scale that you're using, the viewport that you're targeting. If it's a mobile device, I can target it to be landscape or things like that, right? So the meta tags are used. They are basically information about what is contained within your page. Then you have the title of the document, which here I said I'll call it HTML primer. Then, of course, now we have the body, and this is where all the content of our page goes. So I said for you to put an HTML comment, you can simply have a greater than sign, then an exclamation mark, then two hyphens. That will mean that you're putting in a comment. So as I'm going to be typing my HTML, I'm going to also be putting a lot of comments. Comments are an executable code, but they help you to document what you're trying to do. Or if you want a portion of code to not execute, then you also comment it out. So it will be ignored when the program is executing. So the shortcut for putting a comment is basically you press the control and forward slash. So if you press control and forward slash, it will put comment for you as you can see. But you can type it by hand if you want to. So here I'll say headings. So HTML has six headings in total. That is from heading 1 all the way to heading 6. Heading 1 being the largest. So you can say heading 1 is the main content of your heading. So let's say, for example, we're producing maybe something like a page that contains maybe details about Technical University of Kenya. So you just want to describe a little bit about Technical University of Kenya before we go right into the address book. So heading 1, I can have here maybe TUK. So it's going to be one. You need to only have one heading 1 on a document. You don't need more than one heading 1 on a single document because it is the main heading. And this is done for search engine optimization purposes. So when you have a lot of heading 1s, the search engine that might not be able to tell what exactly your page is all about. So heading 1 is very important to have it just once. So I'll have Technical University of Kenya, for example. Then you can have another heading too. So I'll just display this one so that you can be able to see how it looks like on a page. So I'll go live. It will open that, so you can see it's that. So I'll just put them side by side so I can see my design and my output. Then I can hide the text here. So that's heading 1. Then heading 2, I can have now this is subheadings. So subheadings could be, for example, the main services that we offer in TUK. So heading 2, like maybe say our courses, courses. So our courses here, you can have all our courses. Then I can have another one heading 3. Then now I can say uh, department is Department of ICT. ICT. Then I can have heading 4. Now, the courses that are being offered in ICT, we have diploma courses in ICT. We also have degree courses in ICT. We also have certificate courses in ICT, like that. So you can see the headings are becoming smaller and smaller. So heading 1 can only be one. Heading 2 can be so many because I have courses. Then I can have other things that we are offering besides the courses. So they can be another H2. So H3 can be departments. So I can have one department, then I can have other H3, which are other departments, and so forth and so forth. Then for now the H5, I can go to H5 and H6 because we have heading 1 all the way to heading 6. That does not mean that you must use all of them. So you can see it gives me another heading 2, our campuses. Heading 3, we have main campus. So we can go on and on. So heading 1 is there. Then I have this heading 2. Then I have that. So I can indent them like that so for you to see the hierarchy of the courses. This is the last time I'm going to accept people coming to class without accepting the invite. Accept the invite that I'd shared, so just join the class silently, please. Eh? So as I was mentioning, um, this is how we use headings. And headings are very important because as we are working on our documents, the headings help us in being able to do certain things like identifying the main content. It helps us group elements together. Like here, I'm talking about courses. So maybe I can group departments together and so forth and so forth. So I can have that department and have another H3 here, have another H3 here. Maybe this is Department of Business. And then I can have, you can see, so this heading and this heading are at the same level, but this heading is under this. So you can have heading 1 all the way to heading 6. It all depends on how you want to coordinate your um, your content. Then besides headings, we also have paragraphs. You can also output paragraphs. Remember, these are what we call block level elements because you can see H1 has a corresponding close H1 and something of the sort. So at this point, you can be able to see that every time you have a H1, you must have a corresponding H1. Otherwise, if I don't put this corresponding H1, then everything inside this particular page will be assumed to be H1. Okay, so if I don't close that H1, everything else in this page is going, everything inside here will be assumed to be H1. So just make sure that semantically you're actually doing the right thing so the browser knows exactly what it should be able to do. Now, the other thing about the content of HTML that we represent on a page are what we call paragraphs. And paragraphs are basically text that we output on the browser. So for example, if I want to describe the school of ICT a bit, I can put a paragraph here like that. So whatever I want to offer, whatever I want to discuss as far as ICT is concerned, I can be able to provide it here. So you see, I can put a paragraph. Then within the paragraph, I can put the courses that we offer. So maybe say I can say. Maybe not the course that you offer, but I can describe the school a bit. So I'll simply use lorem 50 characters. This is going to put some random text from from lorem ipsum, some random printing press text that we use for placeholders when you're designing something. So you can see if I put a paragraph like that, then I'm able to output as much information as possible. So I can have one paragraph, then I can have another paragraph. This one I'll say lorem 20. So you can say I have one paragraph, another paragraph, and I can go on and on. I can put as many paragraphs as I want to go. Okay? Lorem 30. Of course, you're going to put actual text in this particular point. So you get the idea of how we actually use paragraphs. So besides paragraphs, we can also input images inside our HTML pages. So let's say, for example, we want to put the logo of Took here. So I'll put a comment here and I'll say logo of TUK. So what I'll need to do is I just need to have the image. So I'll go to Google and search Technical University of Kenya. Then I can go to images. I think I'll be able to have their logo. It's actually here. That's KSB Foundation. Yeah, let me put this. Okay, that doesn't look good, but I think this one does look nice. So I'll click on that and I can save it. Save image as. Just make sure it's a JPEG. So I'll go where we are storing our files. So I think it's documents. Then inside documents, I have a visual programming directory, this one. Then I have images here, and I can put logo. So I'll save that logo over there. So when I come here, who are these people who did not accept invitation? Gabriel, class rep, tell them this is the last time I'm accepting this. This is what I was trying to avoid. When you're in class and you're coming late, I want you to come in silently. Don't interrupt the others as we are continuing. So this is the last time I'm accepting this. If you don't accept the invitation, just out of the class, wait for the recording. You can follow it later on. Okay, so as I was mentioning, we want to put logo for Took. I've just gone ahead and downloaded the logo and placed it inside my images folder over here. So you can see here, I have logo.php. So once I have .jpeg rather, so once I have that logo, I can come here and put an image. Image is one of those empty tags, which means it does not have a corresponding image tag. So for you to place an image, you simply put uh, img, then you'll put the source of the image src, then just specify where the image is located. Then you can give the alt tag. Alt tag is what is going to be displayed in the event the image is not there. So when you put the source and you put an image that does not exist, text is going to appear. So took logo. So if I put an image that does not exist, as you can see, it displays took logo because I have put an invalid image. The image is invalid, so it tells me what is actually supposed to be there. So here, I'll simply go to the images folder, and this is the images folder. I'll pick logo.jpg, and as you can see, it is able to output my image on the browser. So this is now what you're saying visual programming is all about. You are going to design it using text, but then you have output in a visual manner where your users are able to actually see what the program actually represents. Okay, so you can put as many images as possible. Maybe I might want to put here details of an image for the departments. So I can come here and put this one here. Maybe save this image as, and I call it students one, students. So I can come here when you're discussing the department. I can put the students. So I can put another image here with a source. So img src equals, then I can put my alt tag and I'll put ICT department students. So if the image is not there, as you can see over here, it will say ICT department students. Otherwise, if I put the image back, so I go to images, then from images I'll pick students.jpg, then it should be able to output the students images as you can see here. So when you're working with HTML and CSS, you can also input images besides headings and paragraphs. You can also be able to put images. Are we okay at that point? I'm just using this as a primer so that there's no excuse when you start designing the UI that we have absolutely no idea about how HTML works. That's why I'm taking this time just to take the primer to. I'm sure you've gone through the course, but I just want to go through it all over again just to confirm that we are actually on the same page. Perfect. So besides images, we also have links. We can have links, and these links can be used to create menus. They can be used to create buttons which people can click to go to different places of our application and so forth. So links are a very important part of our HTML and visual programming because we provide users with the links that they can be able to create. So, for example, if I wanted to have a menu up here, um, so that's the logo of Took. So after the Took logo, if I wanted to have a menu here, so maybe say I'll put a comment here and I'll say main menu. Like for example, if you go to the TUK website, you'll find a menu here, or any other website for that matter. You'll find this menu here. This is a menu. This is an example of a menu. So these are links. One link, another link, another link, another link, another link. So we can also use links to produce a menu similar to this. So let me just assume, for example, we want to create our menu here, and maybe I want to ask you which department do you want to go to. So I can give a list of departments here. So when you click on a department, it automatically takes you to that particular department. So for that, you're going to use an anchor element. So we use anchor element to create the links. So we use anchor elements to create the links. So let me create some links, maybe on maybe home, maybe courses, maybe departments, maybe admissions, and so forth and so forth. I'm assuming this is going to form part of our menu. So what I'm going to do here, I can create an anchor tag like this. Then the anchor tag will have a hyperlink reference, which is where it's supposed to point to. So usually if you don't want it to go anywhere, you put a hash. Hash will not go anywhere. Then you close the anchor tag. So you see, if you put the anchor tag, as you can see, the image was a blank tag. There is no corresponding image. Okay? There's no corresponding IMG tag. Okay? So image is a blank tag. It doesn't require that. So it can be empty, but you can also put that. That is still allowed. Okay. So, but for anchor, the rest besides image and a few elements, most of the elements will have an open and a closing tag. So, like the anchor element, it has the anchor element. These are properties of the anchor. So, like href is a property. This again is also a property. These two are properties of image. So it has a property called source, which is the source of the image, and another property called add. So as we are creating our elements, they might also come with some additional attributes. So these attributes are very important for us to work with, as we're going to see when you're writing our code. That is either CSS or JavaScript. So for anchor, it has a hyperlink reference tag, which basically tells us where the page should go. So here I can have home. Then I can create another anchor. I'll say courses. Then I can have another anchor. I call it departments. It doesn't go anywhere. Call it departments. I can have another anchor. Call it admissions. Hyperlink. Admissions. And so forth and so forth. So you see what happens is when I come up here, I have these tags over here. So I have home, I have courses, I have admissions, and so on and so forth. At the moment, they're not going anywhere, but I can actually make them go anywhere. So if I click this home, I can simply take it to kenya.ac.co.ke. So I can simply say, yeah, this one goes to HTTPS or HTTP www.tukenya.ac.ke. So the first one, if I was to click on it, it will go to tukenya.ac.ke. Now, I can add another property here called target. Then I'll put blank because I want it to open on a new window. So again, if I click on it, it will open to Kenya in a new window, as you can see over here. Not a bad idea. I think it's supposed to be HTTPS, if I'm not wrong, but it has come either way. It's HTTPS. Took is on HTTPS. So you can see connection is secure. It means that we are running HTTPS. That's why it was taking time, because it was rerouting. So you get the idea. So you can create, and of course, when a link has been visited, you can see it becomes it has another color. So you can also use these anchors to go to somewhere on the page. So maybe I can say our campuses. Let me add a menu here called our campuses. So I can simply say it goes to campuses. So I'll say our campuses. So what I'll have to do here is I'll come here and I can create a division with an ID of campuses. So then everything here will go to our campuses. So we have main campus, we have Southeast campus. Uh, it's not a campus per se, but let's assume we have Southeast campus. We had another one in Kasarani, and so on and so forth. Now, what happens is I want you to watch clearly what happens. So when I click on these campuses, this page should automatically jump and bring me down here. So let's observe that. So when I click our campuses. So you can see it brings me directly to our campuses. So again, you can use anchors for going to a specific uh, uh, portion of your page by just providing hash with the ID of that particular place. In this particular case, this div, this is the ID. So it's just going to focus on this particular place, however big the page was. If I had other texts down here, like maybe repeat these things down here, you will see it will only focus on, when I come back, it will only focus on our campuses. So you can see it has focused on our campuses at this particular point. So it will usually disregard whatever is below or above, of course, depending on how much content is on the page. So that's how anchor that's how links work. So we have looked at paragraphs, we have looked at headings, we have looked at images, and we have looked at links. And by the way, you can still use an image as a link. So if I wanted to go to Kenya by clicking on this logo over here, I'll simply come to where I'm putting my that image, then I'll wrap it inside an anchor. So just take an anchor and say it goes to www.kenya.ac.ke, then target. Let me use a blank window. Then, of course, inside this anchor, I'm going to put this image. So that will make that image clickable, as you can see. Now this image is clickable, and when I click on it, it opens to Kenya. So, well, I need to start with the GTPS. I've configured my web server here in such a way that it should not accept a line like that, or what we call COS. Um, cause is a cross-origin request, which means that I have disabled them by default for security purposes. But you get the idea. So again, it's not like when you're using one element, it can be exclusive. That like an anchor is an anchor. An anchor can also include other things because it basically provides us with a link that you can be able to click and now access a resource elsewhere. So now let's work with lists. Lists are also very important part of what we would use in HTML to provide information, especially as far as content is concerned. So, for example, we have two types of lists. We have what we call ordered lists. So we have ordered lists. So this is where we number things one, two, three, four, five, and so forth and so forth. So for ordered lists, you'll use UL like that. Then UL will define an actually ordered list is OL, not UL. Ordered list is OL, not UL. So you say OL, ordered list. Then from there, I'll need to provide list items. So for each OL, I need to provide a list item. So I can say here, computer studies. We have a diploma in computer studies. We have a deep tech, information technology, software engineering, and so forth and so forth. So as you can see here, for the diploma, now I'm using an ordered list. This is list that is ordered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so that is ordered list. It's also possible to have what we call an ordered list, something like when you want to maybe say give somebody maybe say admission requirements. Admission requirements don't necessarily need to come in any order, isn't it? I'll just tell you what you need for admission, but they are not necessarily in any particular order. So for an ordered list, I'll simply use UL, and I can simply say here admission requirements. So put here a paragraph and say admission requirements. So admission requirements, as you can see, then I can put my UL here. Then inside the UL, now I can go ahead and provide the items. So I'll say national ID. I'll say KCC, result slip, or certificate, application letter, and maybe a copy of your CV. So if you look at that, you see in this particular case, admission requirements are this. They don't necessarily come in any order, but you need to carry a national ID, okay, citizen slip, your diploma application letter, or and a copy of your CV. That is what is required, but I'm not really putting them in any particular order. So when it comes to lists, these are the two types of lists that you can be able to use as far as HTML is concerned. So up to that point, are we okay? So it's very important. I'm just trying to show us the kind of tags we use in HTML to be able to create our page. Because again, when you're creating our page, we might need to explain a few things here and there. We might need to add images. We might need to add a few instructions. Maybe to reset your password, these are the instructions for password reset. So I might decide to use an ordered list or an unordered list. Maybe if I want to show you the password criteria, what are the requirements for a password? They don't follow each other in any order, but we will say that you should have at least a capital letter, at least 7 characters long, at least a number, and such like that. So you can see all these things when you're creating your user interface. Then you might come and need some of these tags that we have over here to make sure that you're actually able to create the elements properly. Are we okay at that point? I want to focus on the larger part of what we will be doing, which is forms. So I'll close these other ones. I don't need them. So I'm only left with what we need. Somebody says something. Yeah, I've seen somebody mention something on the chat. Okay, it's my AI. Okay, that's my note taker. Okay, so if there's no question at that point, let's discuss HTML forms. So for forms, I am going to use a new file. So I'll come where my project is and I'll create a new file and I'll call it forms.html. So for purposes of designing our application, I'll dispose of this so that I open forms on the different window. So as we are designing the forms, we see how they look like. So forms are very integral part of what we do with HTML, especially in terms of capturing user input. So forms. So most importantly is they're used for capturing and displaying data to our app users, app or website users. So that's what forms do. So when you want to define a form, you'll simply start with the form keyword. Now the form will have certain attributes. One of them will be the action. Action is where the form is going. For now, it's not going anywhere for me. So it's stuck on this current page. Then secondly is, sorry, the method. So the method is how the form is going to be submitted. So we have multiple methods of submitting forms, but the two are post and get. Now, when you say post, post is when you have a lot of data that you want to push over and you don't want to include whatever you're pushing over as part of the URL. Get, on the other hand, is where you're pushing the data. It could be small sets of data that there is not secure and all that, there are no passwords and that kind of stuff. But then that content is included as part of the URL over here, as you're going to see. So the method by default is get. Method for any form by default is get. So if you don't specify it, it will assume you are using the get method. So this is how you define a form. Then now inside the form, we're going to define all the things that we need. So the form will have what we call input types. So we have multiple types of input that we can be able to use. So I want us to see how we can do that. Okay, so I'll use this form. I'll not put the action and the method, but I just want to explain that it won't prevent the form from running, but that naturally it will make the form at least not very very functional. But in our case, we just want to see how the form looks like. So let's start with labels. Labels have two functions inside a form. One, they are used to label inputs for our end users. Then number two, they can also be used by screen readers to be able to output content to people who have uh, like visual impairment or they cannot see properly and all that. So for people who are living with disability, the forms will help them to be able to understand how to work with the form. So that's why the labels are very important. So I'll begin with a label here, and the label will have to link to an element. So here I want to create, let's say we want to create a registration form, or rather a form where students can be able to register. Like they can be able to say their names. Generally, we want them to create their accounts. Of course, first and foremost, I'll have here maybe something like heading 2, and I'll simply say here, create your account. All right. So first and foremost, I'll ask you for your username. What name do you want to use? Okay. So label will simply attach to an element, and of course, as I've mentioned, it can be used to tell a user what is expected on that particular input, and it can also be used by screen readers to be able to speak out the content of that the user is accessing. If they move their mouse over something, it should be able to tell them that field is username or something like that. So those are the two roles that it plays. Then we can have the input itself. So input has very many types. So we have an input, and we can have input of type text, which is the default anyway. So when you say input and don't specify text, it will assume that it is actually text. So this one, Emmet has not been. This Emmet is not working properly. So let me just write it manually. So I'll say I have an input of type text. I want to give it an ID of username, and maybe I can give it other classes if I need to, but I think that's enough. So I can give it username like that. Now this is supposed to be automatically, and this is supposed to refresh automatically. I don't know why it's not. Yeah, so now you can see I have username, then I have where I can type my username. So this is an input of type text. Then you also have an input of type number. So maybe I can put a couple of text, maybe put a paragraph here, and maybe put another input label, another input of first name. Then I'll say first name. Then I have an input of type text, first name. Then I have a paragraph here. Then I can have last name also, like that. So then maybe I can ask you for your mobile phone number. So I can have label for mobile. And I can ask mobile number. I'm assuming you're not going to put plus. So if I'm not going to put plus, then it means that the data that you're capturing as far as mobile is concerned will purely be number in nature. So I can say input, this is type number. Then I can give it mobile. So I want you to observe these others are text. So if I try to type here, this one I can type anything, I can type anything, I can type anything. But when I say it's a number, I can't type anything. I can only put numbers. When I try to input things that are not numbers, I'm trying to type on my keyboard, you can see it cannot accept. But if I put something like 07, blah blah blah, then you can see it's able to accept. So inputs have different types. The first type we have is text, the next type we have is number. We can also have another input of type email. So I can put a paragraph here. I can have label and input of email. Now input of type email, when I type something wrong like that, then I try to submit. Usually it will tell me that this email address is wrong because it knows that the email address should be something like this. The email address should be something like this, as you can see. Okay, this is how an email should look like. Then we also have another type of input called password. So somebody can pick their password. Somebody can pick their password. So I have input of type password. I'll give it an ID of user password. You can just call it password, but I'm just trying to avoid confusion so that you know the difference between the password keyword for the type and the user password for the name and all that. Of course, I need to give a label here, label for user password. So for password, you'll see, again, we tried this last time. You can type passwords, and somebody, even if somebody was looking over your shoulder, they might not be able to tell whatever it is exactly that you're trying to achieve. So that is how you identify or you put password. So if you need to confirm password, I can just come and create another paragraph here and probably uh, have another label like confirm password, like label confirm password. So confirm password. So again here I can put input of type password, but the ID is confirm password. Of course, the name will also be confirm password, like that. So this one, somebody can type a password. Here, somebody can type a password also. Now we also have another type of input, which is date. So maybe say I want to ask you for your date of birth. So if I want to ask you for your date of birth, I'll put here a label and I call it DOB for date of birth. Then for the input, I have a type of date. Then I can give it an ID of DOB under name of DOB. So now I put a date controller there so you can see it becomes a date field. So instead of typing a date here, I can just be able to pick a date from the list. I can change the year back and forth. Maybe say I was born in 1998, for example, for the month of June 10th, something like that. So you can see instead of somebody typing in a date, we can actually allow them to pick in a date. So we can also ask them for their favorite color. So we also have another input called color. So here I'll put label for favorite color or profile color, or maybe it's just a color scheme. Assuming our app is going to have multiple color schemes, so we want to ask user to pick a color scheme. Okay, so for color scheme, we can have an input of type color. Color, the American spelling for color, not the English American color. Then here I can have color scheme. So here I have scheme, color scheme. So as you can see, when I pick this, I can be able to pick any color that I want. I can pick blue, I can pick any shade of green, I can literally pick any color. So you can see we have an input of type color. Then also I might want to ask somebody to upload their profile photo. So if I want somebody to upload their profile photo, I'll put that. Um, so I'll have here a label with an ID for profile photo. So I have here profile photo. Then now I can have an input of type file. Then I give it an ID of profile photo. Now this one will allow me to be able profile photo. This will allow me to be able to choose a file as you can see over here. So when I say choose file, I can go ahead and pick a file from here. Maybe like assuming that's the profile photo, something of the sort. It will be able to put the file over here. Of course, if I wanted to display it on the page, that's a different story because that is now going to be JavaScript's territory. HTML's territory is for purposes of publication, telling the browser what to, how to display certain content. Like here, I'm simply telling it we have a file with an input of a file, so it should allow me to pick a file. Now, when it comes to picking a file, you might also want to accept only some specific types of photos. So maybe you can see if I click on choose here, it's just like showing me all types of files. Let me come to documents here. So I can put a text file, I can put a Word document, a video, an Excel file. If I'm looking at a profile photo, I am not really looking into that. I'm looking at only images. So we have the accept attribute here, which you can specify it accept equals to then accept here. Then you tell it you want images. So I only want to show images. So I just refresh this. So when I say accept image then slash star, it means it only give me only the files that represent images. So let's see that. So if I click that and I say open and I come to documents, now you can see it has only displayed only the things that contain images or folders. So now it's not no longer giving me all the type of input. So again, as you are working with uploading files, the accept element will allow you greatly to filter out what kind of elements you want to be able to work with. Okay, so that is another type of input called file. We have another input called range. I think we have range here. We have range. Range is when you want to, give a range of values, maybe between x and y. So let's give you a classic example. Probably I'll ask you how much time can you dedicate daily for this particular course so that we can determine which course will suit you best. So in terms of hours, how many hours do you want to put in? Between 5 and 10, between 10 and 20. So we can have different values, but of course they represent a certain range. So here I'll put a label and I'll say uh, hours available. Hours available. So here I'll say hours available for study, something like that. Then down here, I'll put an input of type range. So I'll say hours available, hours available. So I'll put the minimum value is maybe say so the minimum value is 1 hour, the maximum is 8 hours. So you have between 1 and 8. So you can see this value here will be between 1 and 8. So you can just pick somewhere in between. That is how we use range. Okay. So besides a range, we also have what we call checkboxes. So for example, when I want to select multiple when I want to select multiple things. Like, for example, I can ask you, how would you like to attend your classes? So there will be in class or in person, there will be online, there will be both, there could be for the weekends only, and that kind of stuff. So let me show you how to do that. So when not radio buttons, but checkboxes would actually allow you to be able to pick multiple elements. Then from there, you can be able to now decide on. I mean, you have you're presented with multiple options, but then you can also pick multiple options. So, for example, I might ask you, what co-curricular activities would you like to participate in? So I can put here label. That one doesn't point to anything. Then I'll put here, okay, not label, but I can put a paragraph. Please choose co-curricular activities that interest you. So in the school, we have a lot of co-curricular activities. So first and foremost, we're going to have an input of type checkbox. So we have sports. Um, Let me just leave it. Well, the reason why we put it with a label is because we want that I can click on this and it picks the input. Otherwise, if I didn't put the label and I just put sports here without this label, I'll have the same effect. The only problem is if I click on this, nothing happens to the checkbox, okay? So you see, that now makes it very difficult, so I have to focus on clicking on the checkbox. But rather, if I have a label, and don't worry, this is just AI trying to fill in for me what I had already done before. So when I put that, it means that I can click on this and it's still able to allow me to access the checkbox. So we have that. We can have another one called music. We can have another one called drama and another one called debate. So you can see from here, I can pick sports, music, debate, or I can pick drama and debate, or I can pick debate only or music only. So in short, I'm presented with multiple options, but from the multiple options, I can only be able to choose. I can choose more than one option. All right. So there's another set of options where we're represented by multiple options, but you can only pick one option at a time. So, for example, I'll ask you, what is the attendance mode you'd like to? What attendance mode would you like for this? Sorry, what attendance mode would you like? So, is it an attendance mode? It means that we have. So, I'll simply put here, please choose attendance mode. So when it comes to choosing attendance mode, here I'm going to use a radio because you have to choose one of the many options. So I'll put an input of type radio, then it's going to be physical. Then I can put another input of type virtual, which means virtual. Then I can also put attendance mode of hybrid, which is a mixture of physical and virtual. So you know that in this particular case, I can only pick one. So if I pick physical, I can't pick virtual and I can't pick hybrid. So if I pick hybrid, these others are mutually excluded. So this is called radio button. And now what's important is make sure that the names of the radio buttons are the same. So you can see here, this name is the same as this name is the same as this name. If the names are different, then I can actually pick two of them, which is invalid, as you can see, and I can even pick three. If the names are different, then I can pick three of them. So that's very, very important for you to note. The names must be the same when you're using radio buttons to make the options mutually exclusive, which means you can only select one at a time. Okay? Then we also have an input of type hidden. So sometimes we hide information like maybe I want to put an ID up there. So I can put an input and I give it a type of hidden. It's going to be an input, but it's not going to display, so the user can be able to type on it. Then here I can simply say student ID, student ID. So if you observe closely, just before username, I should have student ID, but it's not showing. If I said is type text, you will see it. It's actually there. But if I say it's hidden, it's not going to be there. So sometimes we need to have these hidden fields when you're working with some values. Maybe like the student ID, I want to be able to put it there so that when I'm working on this form, I know which student I'm working with. Then the hidden input type would be a welcome tool for us. Okay? Then those are the input files that we can be able to use. So we have text, we have number, we have email, we have telephone, we have password, we have date, we have color, we have file, we have range, we have checkbox, we have option button, and so forth and so forth. So those are input types. Then we have also other elements that are not necessarily input types but can also be used to capture this data. Let me say, for example, I can ask you, where did you hear about us? Then I give you a drop down list from where you can select how you heard about to Kenya. So I can come down here, put a paragraph, sorry, and say, how did you hear about us? So we might want to know how you heard about us, so we know where to put more effort next time in terms of our advertisement. So I'll just output this. So we have a select input with a name referrer and ID referrer. Then we have option with a value. Then of course the text to be output inside that option. So as you can see here, select one is the text that is actually displaying on the option. So option we have social media, we have friend, advert, newspaper, and so on and so on. So when I pick this, of course I need to put a label here for referrer. So how, as you say, select option. So here I'll have how do you hear about us? So you can see I give you a drop down list, then I can ask you can pick only one value from there. So this is not an input type, but it's what we refer to as a select button. So actually this one should have a closing select like that. So every time you have a select, make sure you have a corresponding close select, otherwise it's going to give you problems. So that is another type of input that we can be able to use. Now the other input that we can be able to use is what we call a text area. So something like I can ask you for any comments. So tell us anything about yourself. Give us any comments. Now for this one, I'll have to use something like a text area, which means it's a text box. All these are text inputs, but as you can see, these ones only contain one line. So let me just output the text area like that. So you can see here, I can only type one line. When I press enter, I cannot have more than one line. But if I say text area, not an input of type text, down here, now I can type as much text as possible. Okay. So sometimes I need the user to capture for me as much details as possible. So I'll use a text area instead of an input of type text. So these are really the form. Okay, we have one last one, which is buttons. We can also have buttons inside our page. So buttons can be input of type submit with an ID of save, well, save, then the value is actually register. Value is what is displayed on the text, so register account, something like that. So of course here I might need to put a paragraph. So you can have down here, you can say register account. So when I click on this, it will just submit that form as you can see. Now, as I said, the form by default, the method is get. So you can see when I clicked on save, it has actually appended the contents that the form has as part of the URL over here. So that's how the form properties work. But if I had changed the method here and I change it to post, so form, I give the method of post. So method of post. So if the method is post and the method doesn't have to be uppercase, it can be lowercase like that. So when I refresh the form and I say save, you will see that I have not told it where to go. So that's why the form is having an issue. So I need to tell it the action. So post to yourself. So you can see if I say post and I don't tell it where to go, it doesn't know where to go. So I'll refresh that. I say register account, it will post to itself. Now, I know this is it's trying to post via this URL and that doesn't seem to work out. So maybe we'll probably fix that later because this is supposed to be used for design, not specifically for processing purposes. But you get the idea. Forget it don't have a problem because the content is going to be to form part of the URL. Again, if you're dealing with things like sensitive like passwords, you're going to upload things like files and so on and so forth. Then you have to use post, and especially if the data is a lot, then you have to use post. So we have input submit, and we also have input clear. It's reset actually. So something like that. So what will happen is I have a clear form here. So it means that if I type some content here like this and I pick some fields here, then I come and say clear, you'll see it just automatically clears the form for me. So these are very important inputs to understand as far as forms are concerned. Forms are a very important element when it comes to how we create our user interface for purposes of being able to capture or display data to an end user. There could be you could create better elements than this. Maybe I forgot to mention the use of tables because tables are equally very important when it comes to capturing data. So I'll just go into that before we close this up. Any question up to that point? So the why I have decided to look at the HTML primer is because you're going to be using a lot of HTML to create our user interface and output our data. So with that in mind, we need to actually understand how it works right out of the box because we want to program it, we want to make it dynamic, but we need to know how that works out beforehand, right? So that's why it is important. Okay, so let's finalize this with tables. So besides forms, we can also use tables, and tables are used to relay data in various ways. So for example, I can have a table here. Now when I have a table tag, a table is made up of three things. We have the table header, which is the heading of the table. We have the table body, and we have the table footer. You must not have all of them. You can have either one part, two parts, or all the three parts. But of course, for a specific table, I would usually want to have the three parts. The table header is the heading part of the table. So this is where you create the heading. So let's say we want to display um, something like maybe fee structure for the course that you just selected. So I can put here a T head, TH, and I'll simply say here that is item number. Then I'll put another TH, that is item name. Then I'll put another TH, and I'll say amount, and I'll say another TH, uh, option. Then now inside the T body, now I can create my table row. And inside my table row, now I can create my item that I want to charge. So maybe say this one is tuition. So I have tuition over there is maybe say 10,000. And the option here, I'll say it is, actually I should say termly. Option should be termly. So per semester. So I have tuition is charged per semester. Then I can have exam is also charged per semester. That's number two. Then I can have number three, maybe say admission, that is charged once. That is on registration only, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so if I come to the table here, you can see, let me put different figures. So that is 10,000, that is 5,000, and this maybe is 2,000. Something of the sort. So you can see I have the table over there. So the T foot here, I can also have a table footer, which is what appears at the bottom of the table. Now I have some columns here, so I'm just trying to show us how we can be able to span this. Remember, I already written this code, so it's trying to be a bit cheeky with me, but let me just put it. So I have to put it. So when I say table division, when I say call span, it means how many columns I want you to span. I want to span two columns, so you can see it will span this one and this column, so it will take these two portions. That forms one column, and I tell it call span that. Okay, so you can see now it has given me 17,000 as my total, and of course that remains as is. Of course, the styling for tables, whatever you are outputting here is basically we're just publishing the content and not necessarily styling the content. If I had introduced Bootstrap here or done my own CSS, then I would probably style this to look a little bit nicer so that now moving forward we can be able to use this content. But what's important is for us to be able to understand how do we define a table, what is table header, what is th, what is tbody, what is tr, and what is td. What does call span do, or what does row span do, and so forth. Because sometimes I might want a row to span more than one column. Maybe I want to put an item, then I want to put currency below it. So something of the sort, let me actually just do that. So I can have here, well, okay, let me leave it. We probably do it when you are looking at a practical. But since I have amount here, I might want to put another here, okay, shilling. So I want these other ones to span two columns. So you can see now that would be able to allow me to have two columns, but there's some th that are spanning more than one row. So like I've spanned column here, I can span row span, something of the sort. Okay. So this is how we create our user interface using HTML and the form elements that form a bigger part of HTML. Any question up to that point, you can use the comment, you can unmute your mic, you can also just put it in the comment section. So I'll be able to answer any question that arises. Any question? No question. Okay, so I think if there's no question, I will leave you at that with the remaining couple of minutes. I'll post this video. You can look into it. Next time, somebody has a question? Ryan? Ryan, your mic is on mute. You have a question? Okay, no question. So I'll share this video with your class rep. Then maybe you can be able to go through it. In the event that you feel there's something that you've not understood, make sure you understand it, because I'll assume moving forward that HTML is out of the way. Then we can focus on specifically what this course is all about, which is JavaScript, to be precise. Okay, so I'll post this video in conjunction with the other ones that I've shared. You can look at them. Just make sure you familiarize yourself with HTML nicely. So with that, I think I'll take a break at that. Then we can meet again. I don't know if it's tomorrow or Wednesday. Then we can carry on with CSS. We're going to do CSS just briefly so that you see how it works out and how the selectors are done, because we will need the same selectors when we are working with JavaScript. So let's take a break at that. Then enjoy the rest of your day.